Mind Gap Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin.
And I swallowed weird before I did that, and I had to get it down, and that threw me off because it threw you off. Should have taken a drink before we started, but here we go.
That was the most panicked last minute, I gotta swallow this before I start.
I was like, this doesn't feel right.
And Doug, what's the last thing you did for the first time?
Just dumped in a open project, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? The last thing I did for the first time?
Yeah.
Boy, that just makes me angry, that kind of question. That's like
Why is that?
That's like an icebreaker question for a fucking corporate meeting that you go to.
They're
like, all right, guys, what's the last thing you did for the first time? And everyone just sits there going like, fuck, I don't know. What can I make up?
Right. Well,
to make this end as quickly as possible.
The person you want to be friends with is the one who raises their hand and goes, attended this meeting?
Ha but it's a weekly meeting. And they're like, whoa.
Right, I quit.
Oh, shit. I wasn't thinking clearly on that one. The last thing I did for the first time. My taxes! There we go.
The last thing you did for the first time.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
You
I need help. I've got a GoFundMe right now.
You're 40. That's not good.
My wages are being garnished. I need help.
I'll say this, as much of a bullshit corporate prompt as that is, if you think about it from an ethereal standpoint, it is a little daunting because you're just like, fuck, I'm never going to do this thing for the first, It makes you. There's a sense of mortality with this question. Is what I'm trying to say.
Watched Oppenheimer. There we go.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Yeah. The last thing I did for the first time is I watched season 3, episode 14 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's the last thing I did for the first time.
Yeah, I hate this question
because it changes. It always changes.
I'm sad that I rolled 157 on the D255. I should have added the 10 plus 10 modifier to get 167. This makes me angry. But you know what? The dice giveth and the dice taketh away. That's how it works.
Oh, 167 would have been a good one.
Ugh,
it would have been a good one. Yeah, we will get there someday, yeah.
Yeah.
For just a little peek behind the curtain for those who don't. The questions I always ask come from a website where there's 255 of them. And I have Doug pick a number. And today, Doug just realized that with a dice, like a D&D mod that he has, he can create a 255-sided die, which is fantastic. And so this is how if you're wondering where the questions come from, this is now how we scientifically choose the question prior to rolling.
That's right. That makes sense, and it's fun,
and it's
except
awesome.
for that question. That question can die. You know, the last thing it does for the first time is die. So there it goes.
What I need to do is I need to go back through and see if I can.
I hope you're remembering which ones we've done.
I'm not. And that's the thing. I need.
Oh, boy.
Hardcore not. I need to go back through and figure out, okay, which ones have we done? And then I need to transfer them away from this.
I sure thought this was way more scientific than the way you were painting it.
Doug, we just started rolling today.
Oh, that's right. For the last thing we did for the first time. Let's roll for this, you know.
All right. See, we've been able to answer the question now.
There we go.
Doesn't it make it a better question?
No, I fucking hate it. So, suck it, question. Stupid ass question. Stupid question. Well, to kick things off here, I have a good gym story that I want to share.
I saw this on the list and I was like, is it going to be ooh, this is good? Or is it truly like a feel-good gym story?
I mean, listen, it's not a huge deal, but I felt good. It made my day better. So I was at the gym today, just doing some chest, working on the pecs.
On Tuesdays, we do chests.
Monday, Justin. Monday.
And that's have you seen that guy on Instagram?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Because I hate social media. No. I thought that was like a Mean Girls reference where like on Wednesdays we wear pink.
No, there's a guy who does on Tuesdays we do arms because if you and then he goes into some very very blue rhyme about if you want a girl to like you, you can't have weak arms. It's funny when you hear it. Look the guy up.
Was it intentionally funny or was like funny because like this guy's trying to be serious?
No. He's because he always ends up he and everyone that's like filming and around the gym end up cracking up. So they write these things I
think I know the guy you're talking about. Yeah,
he's a big beefy dude with a beard and he's always on some machine. He only does like per this he only does arms. He's just like on Wednesday we do arms because if you want to slip into her whatever, I'm not going to do it.
Keep going. Yeah. Don't stop.
No,
don't stop
false.
On my account. Yeah.
I'm stopping on the account of who might listen eventually.
Oh, come on. It's episode 429.
Here's the thing. I don't want to take away from this gentleman's Instagram account. So please feel free to look him up, anyone, and enjoy the content.
Yeah. Don't give a shit about my story, but you don't want to take away from that guy's account. I got it.
I know. I'm ready for your story. This is just...
I thought that's how you're going to spit. You're like, Doug, I don't want to take away from you. Let's get back to you. And I was going to be like, well played. But anyway. So I was out there doing chest. Working on those pecs. Got to bring it back to where we were. And I was doing some bench, and there was a young woman in the bench next to me, and she had 135 on, which I was like, that's pretty good. Like, nice. That's a 45 plate on each side. I was like, damn, because that's what I had on for my workout. I was doing 4 sets of 10. I was like, shit, all right, girl, you fucking go get them. That's awesome. And at one point, like, she's got like a gym bag. I could tell like she knows what the fuck she's doing. And at one point she comes over, she goes, hey, I'm so sorry. She's like, can you spot me real quick? And I was like, oh, okay. This is the first time since May of 2021 that anyone in this gym has asked me to spot them. Yeah. And I was like, sure. Okay. So I went over. She's like, all right, I'm going to do 1 rep. I'm going for 1. If I get it, I'm going to go for 2. Do not touch the bar unless I tell you. And I was like, got it. And all of a sudden I was filled with fear. I was like, this isn't that big of a deal, but I don't want to fuck this up. This is obviously, right. So she gets in and she does 1, nails it, starts going for 2, and then she starts shaking her head. And I was like, is this an opportunity for me to get it now or what? And then she's like, I can't do it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I get it. I pull it up and she's like, thanks. I was like, hey, great job. Nice way to go.
If you make the caveat, you actually have to say the words. Like,
right. What's our safe word? Is it banana
hammock? You can't
just
shake your head. I'm like, you got it. Keep going.
Go. I was like, also,
I didn't hear anything.
I didn't say this, but I'm like, I hope you're not the person that like wants someone to scream encouragement because it's not going to be me. That's not who I am. So
right.
If you need to be like, come on, get those packs. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to.
I'm the guy that's going to get real close and whisper in your ear and go, you got this.
You're like,
ASMR lifting.
You are strong. You are independent. And you can tell Brant to shove it up his ass. So she does that, and then I do a set. I'm resting, and I realize she still has the 45s on. I go, she's going to ask me again. There's no way she's going to do this by herself. Then she goes, do you mind? Can we? I was like, no problems. She goes, all right, this time I'm just going to straight up say help. Like I'm just going to let you know. I'm like, cool. We're on the same page. I got this. She goes for 1. She doesn't quite get it. Pull it up, and she goes, oh, thanks so much. I go, hey, you did a good job. She goes, I'm getting back in the swing of things. I'm like, you look like you're doing just fine. Keep it up. Way to go.
That's more than I could probably do. So, I mean, I fucking give it up to anyone who can rock that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, it made me happy for a couple reasons. One, someone felt comfortable enough to come up and talk to me and ask me to spot them, especially a woman. Like, that anyone asking a stranger to spot them is a lot, but especially a woman in a gym environment, I think there's just a lot of bullshit that goes on. This woman obviously knew what the fuck she was doing. She had really good form. She knew what was up. So like for her to have the confidence to be like, hey, I need someone to spot me because I want to try and do like a 1 rep max. Like, can you help me out with that? And I was like, you asked me? Okay. So obviously I this guy who's like a, at walking in Star Wars, like this big thing that walks and breathes through his mouth, you're like, this guy, he can help me.
He's got me.
Granted, there was no one else around, but still, she still felt comfortable enough to ask me to spot her. And I was like, you got it. And I was like, this is the part of gym culture that I don't see a whole lot that I love, because like that is what it should be. It should be like, hey, can you help me do this real quick? Because later on my workout, there was a guy who was like singing to himself as he was doing stuff. And I was like, fucking quit it. Like, no one wants to hear you mumble the words to whatever the fuck you're listening to while you work out. Like, I don't give a shit. He's just like, hey, skip it, I'm like, fucking quit, man. Like, if you're pumped up, great. Just inside voice, man. In your brain.
It's the same as the people who play DJ on the train.
It's
the same concept.
Or the people
they don't care about anyone else they're affecting. They are the main character of every story.
Well, here's the thing too: is we have technology now that allows us to personalize this audio output. We've come a long way, and even though we have these things and have had these things like headphones for decades now, people have foregone them to then use speakerphone. Or the amount of people I see in the grocery store that are on FaceTime blows my fucking mind. Because here's the thing. If you're like, hey, real quick, is this what you're looking for? Cool, absolutely, got it.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and I was like, that makes sense. But people are just strolling around. And you know what it is? Yeah. You know what it is? There's a physicality in the grocery store where I can tell that someone's a piece of shit. I'm gonna try and do it for you now. All right.
Okay, let me see this.
Here it is. Yeah. This is people on their cart, right?
I was going to say, it's the lean over on the forearm. Yep.
The lean over on the cart. They're just... and they're chewing on something. I don't know what it is, but it's just like... They just kind of go through.
Yeah.
It's a tough call between that person and the person that pulls the cart from the front. I know I've talked about this, but pulling the cart from the front is stupid because you are... on the side of the cart, you're taking up more fucking space.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I thought you meant when you're pulling it off the rack or something. But you mean like just guiding it around the store?
They just grab it from the front leading it, and they drag it behind them,
right,
as they go around. And I was like, "There's a handle, like it's clearly marked how this device is supposed to work.
This has been designed a specific way,
and you push it because that way you reduce your footprint of space instead of standing to one side and then pulling. I'm like, you're taking up double the amount of space now. Right. So, fuck you. But the person who's like leaning on the cart and just, but those people are usually always on fucking FaceTime and just talking, or they just have it like down, like sitting on like the upper thing. It's walking around. I was like, just fucking talk on your phone then. Put in your headphones. Why do you need the visual? That's terrible.
I have seen people like that do that have a, because I'll look over and I'm like, oh fuck, there's a person on the phone, and the person's seeing is like straight up the nose, because the person in real life is just they're just sitting over it, and I'm like, why are you not even looking at it? That has forever baffled me. Why do people do that? I don't understand that either.
If you're one of those people, come clean in the comments, admit it, and tell me why. I want to understand. Until you do that, you're a piece of shit. All right.
He spoke it. It is true now.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm glad you had a good gym experience.
Yeah, that was a real good gym story, you know.
It makes me happy that you had a good experience based off of a couple weeks ago when we talked about all the negative things that can happen and that are born out of gym culture. Like, that's the kind of shit that makes you that's fun to go and have that communal experience. Like someone's like, hey, person to person, can you do this? I'm trying to PR. And then you were there for them and they're like, damn, not this time, but next time. And, you know, that's someone who now when you see them around the gym, you've got to connect. You may not talk to them all the time, but you at least know someone there. Like, you start to see these people and you're like, okay, it's a little community in here. It's kind of cool.
It was weird. It was like from that point on when I saw her, I was like rooting for her. I was like, you got this. Like everything else she was doing, I was like, go do that one now. You got this. You know, like, good for you. I was like, just really, I don't know. I was just rooting for him. Like, you go for it, you know?
There's another dude at my gym who, and I can't remember if I talked about this guy. It's not Cardigan Man, but it is another guy who, similar to the singer, he's in the functional fitness area, and he will lift or do like one of the, like he'll do the plate sit-ups, you know, on that machine where you can put your feet underneath. He'll do something like that. Then he'll like boom, drop the plate, and then he walks over and stands in front of the window where he can see his reflection, and like freestyle dances is the best thing that I can equate it to. Like,
I thought you were saying flex, like, and I don't know if this is better or worse.
Look, I would understand flexing. I don't quite understand freestyle. I'm like, are you? And he'll like sing low to himself, but he's singing and dancing.
Oh, he sings "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" to himself.
Yes, it's the weirdest thing to dance to.
Yeah. Sweet chariot.
And he is, but he's like keeping his heart. He's
carry me home.
Fairly certain it's the club version of that, but yeah, I don't know. And I don't want to. Again, I'm trying not to judge because I'm like, well, maybe this is just how he keeps his heart rate up. Maybe this is him. Like, look, dancing is movement. Movement is exercise. That's.
I'd like you to prove all the statements you just said.
Okay.
Mathematically, go.
Welcome to my symposium. I don't know. Like, what's your take on that? Because I'm of mixed emotions on it, because there's part of me that's like, look, this guy's he's moving, he's doing his thing. When I'm at home, and I'm going to let you answer in a second. When I'm at home, in between sets, I'll shadow box just to kind of keep my heart rate up. I do not do that at the gym. I'm sure I could, but I just feel like in the functional fitness section, I don't feel like the space isn't set up for it, if that makes sense. People are moving around. It just seems odd to me. So while I want to give him, the do what you got to do, it also seems very odd and a little like kind of look at me.
I'd have to see it to really get a full idea. So record him next time you see him doing
what I'll do,
which is really cool to do and then whatever. No, I'm all for whatever you got to do in between sets and whatnot. I try to keep whatever I do to a minimum. Okay. Like I walk around in between sets just to keep my heart rate going, and whatnot. Anything that's overly flamboyant is just not me. I don't like doing that. That seems odd to me, but hey, whatever. It's weird that he chooses to go to the window and do it.
That's the part. Like if he were just picking a spot and doing it, but he's blatant, like overtly looking at himself. It's not even a
it seems odd to me. I don't know. There's a woman who I see occasionally. I think it's usually on the weekends. She goes on the treadmill and she does a routine. Is the best thing I can describe. She's watching some sort of video and she's moving.
Is it like the OK Go
music
video?
No,
okay,
not like that. It's very much like she's like getting down, coming back up. Like she's looking at some sort of routine. It looks ridiculous to me. Okay. It looks absurd, and I see it, and I go, "Kudos to you, ma'am, for having the guts to go in here in this place filled with people and do whatever the fuck it is you're doing on the treadmill." It is bizarre to me. The last time I saw her doing this, I was doing some machines, and I saw this older guy. He stops right in front of me, and he's like taking a sip of water, seeing her, and he looks at me almost like, "Hey, man, can you fucking believe this?" I was like, in my mind, I was like, please don't say anything to me. Because there's an older person thing where they go, "Oh, my God, this line, can you believe it?" I'm like, I don't want to commiserate with you. I don't want to. Like, I don't want to do this. But he had like that vibe of like, "Hey, man, I bet you and I could really shoot the shit about this." I'm like, I just want to work out and go home. Fucking whatever. Yeah, it's weird, but whatever. She does this often. I've seen her enough where I know that when I see her, I'm like, I know what you're doing today. You're doing whatever it is you're doing on the treadmill. And
I mean, does it seem like it's kind of like does it seem like when you say a routine, like aerobics-esque, or is it more like it's a dance routine, or like what?
It seems like it definitely seems like it'll work you out. So like, it doesn't seem like she's just sitting there going, but even so, like you're walking and doing that, and I'm moving your arms, you're gonna get hurt. But like she's grabbing like the treadmill, and she's like shifting side to side and like getting low, coming back up, and whatever. And it looks odd.
Interesting. Interesting.
But
okay.
I can tell she's sweating by the time it's done. And again, I look at it, I was like, hey, good for you, because there's no one else in this place that's doing that. And,
Yeah.
fucking go for it. Like, I don't give a shit. I think it's odd, but I'm like, whatever. It's obviously a workout, It's something that's, I can see the benefits of what she's doing. It's just weird as fuck.
Right. Well, and that's so interesting that to the dancing guy at my gym and to this treadmill routine lady at yours, to a point, good on you, because I do not have the balls to, as much as I would love to, jump around or do my shadow boxing in between sets or something just to kind of keep the heart rate up. I do not have the balls to do that. And if you've got that kind of confidence, I genuinely admire that. That is very cool.
Your thing.
I wish it was a little less. So as a society, I wish that was more accepting. But I know exactly what people are thinking, and I don't have the balls to do that and allow myself the freedom to do that. Yeah, and that sucks. Now I will say, if it is showy, this dancing guy, while I say good to him, at the same time I'm like, there's definitely a performative aspect to this.
Yeah.
It's where you're jumping around
go
a little
fucking do
too
that
much.
at home, man. Don't do that here.
I'm just saying there's got to be another way to keep your heart
Because the way
rate
I look at it is like, I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see someone doing that. I just don't want to hear the guy humming loudly. I don't want to hear people grunting and dropping their weights, and just being obnoxious. That to me is like performative in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like I don't see it often, but when I hear someone be like, "Ah, clang," and I'm like, fucking chill out. All right, take it fucking easy. All right, like that same guy was doing like rows on this machine. He was like clank, clank, clank. I was like, no one else here does that, man. Like, what are you doing?
That's poor form because you're not controlling.
Because I would argue that too. Because also he was leaning back. I was like, you got to keep your chest straight on there.
Keep that back straight, man.
Keep it straight and go all the way up. And like, if you're just like kang, kang, I'm like, nah, that's annoying. You're annoying, buddy.
We talked about this before. What's the not deceleration? The when you're coming back down and you go slow.
Yeah,
that's the what is that?
Decentric
word. Decentric. Yes, he's not controlling the decentric motion.
Yeah, I think it's Kuhnenfüger. I think is what it is.
Is it the Kuhnenfüger motion?
Kuhnenfüger. Yeah, that's a throwback.
It's actually you don't need to say motion after that because this in Swedish that is. It's
like saying chai tea.
Motion.
You're saying TT,
Exactly, yeah. It's just the Kuhnenfüger.
Kuhnenfüger.
Controlling the decelerating motion.
Controlling the Kuhnenfüger, You get it. Speaking of annoying and sometimes frightening things, this one got me riled up. Last week, WebMD went viral.
Oh, man. Yeah.
For their video they posted about basically demanding their employees return to office. If you have not seen this video, I highly recommend you Google WebMD back to work video. It's available. They haven't taken it down. It's still there. And it is so cringeworthy and upsetting for so many reasons that I'd like to spend some time on.
Many levels.
Yeah.
Many levels.
Yeah, I forget how this came through or how I caught it, but I saw it. This is a trigger for me anyway, because if you don't know, I hate the drive of putting people back in the office right now and let me specify this, for no reason. There is I have not heard a strong argument as to why, in general, people need to go back to the office. And a lot of it is like, oh, we work better when we're in the same room together. And I was like, okay, explain that to me. Where are your metrics? Where are your KPIs that state that that's true? And what upsets me is like, for some roles, absolutely you should be in the office to do them. Undoubtedly, if you're training someone, being in person, there's nothing like it. It's the best fucking thing in the world. When you're being trained or you're giving the training, in person is the fucking best. You can't beat it. If you are, I don't know, fucking talking to customers, like meeting with customers, or working with your hands on something at a place like a plant or whatever, it makes sense for you to be at work for your job. I don't know, an EMT can't really work from home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like doctors, they kind of got to be there to do some stuff. So for that sort of stuff, I'm like, yes, that makes sense. But for most corporate roles, you can do that shit from home. And corporate America gave into that because they had to for the pandemic. And recently, they've been really itching to get people back to the office. And I can't understand why. I have a theory, but I can't understand why. And it's upsetting to me. So when I saw this video, it sent me through the fucking roof. It is, not only is it super cringeworthy, it is a slightly better corporate video than you'd expect, but not by much. Yeah. And there's a slogan on it that says, what's it say? I fucking forget already. WebMD. Or is it? It says, come back now, comma, or else. That is the static text on the video. They are threatening their employees.
Yes. Yeah. They also the song they use at the end.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It is. It's the Giacomo Fina Nanane, Giacomo Finane. It's a I don't. Is it an older song?
Yeah, it's an older song.
My grandpa and your grandpa sitting by the fire. Da 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 da. Talking about, hey now. So that's the song. And apparently that Giacomo Finane translates to "we mean business" or "don't mess with us."
Yeah.
And they actually translate that at the end of the video.
Yeah.
So like, if the first one isn't threatening, that's a threat too. We mean business or don't mess with us.
Yeah.
What the fuck message are you sending to your goddamn employees? And then additionally, the other thing that enraged me about this is that the entire video, all the ELT, everyone from the executive leadership team was in front of a green screen. No one was in the offices, which they were pushing people to go back to.
Which wouldn't have been that hard to do.
No.
Production-wise. If you're talking just a corporate video, get out your fucking iPhone.
Yeah.
And just fucking record it. You know what I mean? Like, they have good audio and everything like that, but the effort it took to set up a green screen and then to not actually be in the office sends a bit of a confused message to me.
Yes.
You should be there. You should physically be there, showing them, talking to people, whatever. It's weird that they weren't. And also, the executive leaders, those people can't speak for shit.
No.
They're reading the scripts. You just imagine someone's off screen with a fucking shotgun pointed right at their genitals.
Well, that's what someone said. One of the tweets was, number one, why are all these people shot on green screens? Number two, why does it seem like they're all being held at gunpoint?
Yes.
Like, that's exactly it.
It's so hypocritical to be like, you all need to be back here. I'm like, well, you're not back there, motherfuckers. Like,
yeah.
And the worst part, too, is it's like, some people have been going back, but a large group of people haven't. And they, as I say, some people come back, they show shots of people in offices and whatever. And then a lot of people haven't. It shows like empty cubicles. And like also the saddest fucking cubicles you've ever seen. And these sad fucking rooms. And I know what everyone's thinking. I mean, the first question that came to everyone's mind has to be like, number one, WebMD has a CEO, question mark. And number two, WebMD has an office? Like, I thought this was like 5 guys and maybe a hamster that were running this website. Like, I didn't realize they were a fucking corporation. Like, I had no idea that this site was what it was. It's unbelievable to me that this thing even exists, that they actually have office space. It blows my mind. And I love it. At one point, they're like, we need to crush the competition. I'm like, who's your competition?
Right.
Google?
What competition you talking? Right. What competition could you possibly be talking about?
What other web fake MD websites are you competing with? Like, I don't understand your business model at all. I thought you were a kind of questionable website to begin with. So, like, what the fuck? So all that, like, piled together with this terrible message of, you better come back to work or else. And it just fucking sent my blood pressure spiking when I saw this. I was like, how dare you, motherfuckers? How dare you?
Well, there's other ways of going about it. Like, there are ways about saying if you're going to make it mandatory, like, again, don't make a threatening hold a live, at least have the balls to like do like, okay, we're going to have an all hands meeting and we're going to discuss, and here's what the topic's going to be about. Please feel free to submit questions prior so we can answer your questions. We're going to have someone from HR reading off the questions, and we'll do an hour and a half if you can make it. If you can't stay the whole time, like, just do this open forum and let it be something where it's a discussion and you actually give the time to your employees instead of doing this bullshit green screen. Someone else goes, is this video an example of the quality of work they do when they're in the office? Like, if I got this video, I would look at this and go, you couldn't even put production quality behind what you're sending me. That's how little I mean to you. This was let's just rip this off in like a half hour and send it out. We can all do it on our iPhones, and then we'll just fucking put it together in, iMovie and just email it out to them.
Also, did they license that song?
Right.
I mean, I don't even know if that's in public domain or not, but they just, they released this on their Vimeo page, so it's like available to the world for anyone to see, which is, whatever. It just shows pure lack of care.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And they give no good reason to have people back. They're like,
absolutely not.
When we're together face to face, we work better. That's the vague bullshit thing I've ever heard. And that's what I keep hearing in general from these fucking leaders in corporate America, is that like, we're better when we're face to face. I'm like, you're going to have to give me more than that, man. It's no. I would argue in some cases we're better apart. Because, I mean, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, recruiting from a standpoint, you're not isolated to a particular market. If you can recruit from anywhere and then the entire world, that opens up your pool of employees drastically versus like, we have to do it in this area code and that's all we got. It's like, what the fuck? What are you doing?
I'm assuming your leading theory to why people are demanding this is because they've signed lengthy, very expensive contracts on office spaces and they can't get out of them.
One of my favorite comments to the video was, it's like, ooh, looks like someone signed a lease in 2020 and they're trying to get the most out of it, like...
This other one, I love this one because Internet Brands is the parent company of WebMD, and someone goes, LMAO, what kind of leadership team is this? How do I short Internet Brands?
Right. Yeah.
Because this is one of those things where if this catches enough fire, I could easily see another GameStop thing happen. Like, I think this is something that a lot of corporations don't. I don't know if they've learned this yet, but it's don't test the internet.
No.
They like if you do something that catches enough fire and catches the ire of the majority of the internet, you're opening yourself up to a lot of really weird shit that could come your way and a lot of very detrimental shit. And I'm not saying that you have to run your organization out of fear of the internet, but again, just act right. Like, this video was such bullshit.
The fact they're like, we're gonna post this on our public Vimeo. It's like, I have an ongoing theory. And I'm sure this is not new, but just for the longest time in my career in corporate America, I just like call it drinking the Kool-Aid or drinking from the pond or whatever you want to call it. I was just like, this is just what it is, and it's fine. And nothing ever really came back on me or whatever. I'm like, this is just how it is. Things sucked. But I was like, I'm working through this because I'm working hard to elevate myself to hopefully a better level. I went through some shit and a lot of different things. Ever since the pandemic, I've been like reevaluating how I view corporate America, and I really feel like I'm starting to like pull the curtains down, and I'm just like looking at it for what it is. And I believe that there's a certain level you get in corporate America in the hierarchy. And once you cross that bridge or you hit that rung on that ladder, you become disconnected with reality. It's kind of like people with money or people in like who will become famous. They lose connection with everybody else. And this is a clear example of that to me, where someone thought about this video, they conceptualized it. They obviously scripted it out. Obviously, they scripted it out because holy shit, they read it. And they put it together and they were like, we fucking nailed this. Because I saw from a different article that IB was like defending it. They're like,
really?
They're like, corporate videos are like corporate. They're like, corporate videos are corporate videos. When they did a shrug emoji, they're like, what do you want from us? Like, it is what it is.
False.com on that.
And they're like, we stand by this. And I'm like, what do you mean you stand by this? You're demanding your employees come back to work. Why? Why would you demand this and think this is how it is? It's a power play. It's a power move. It's control. I think there's this general fear that people are at home not doing their jobs.
Right.
They're like, I'm like, guess what? People can be in office and also not do their jobs. Like,
oh yeah, that was very, very evident when we were in the office.
Yeah, because the way I look at it is like, if you have good processes in place, you will be able to tell whether or not someone's doing their job, whether they're in the office or out of the office. Shit will get done or it won't. Right. And if you are smart and you're able to adapt this, you can tell whether or not someone is succeeding. Right. And don't get me wrong, listen, spending time together with people in person is important. I don't believe it should be every day. I believe it should be from time to time. Okay. Myself, I saw like my team, my department, we got together twice last year. Mm-hmm. I was only able to go to one because I had conflict with vacation. But we've got another one coming up in May. So I'll be going somewhere for that. I really enjoyed that time. I thought it was great. I got to spend basically like 3.5 days with these people who I had not yet met in person. And It was great. It was good. It was very well thought out. It was very intentional on how we spent our time together. And there were activities that were optional after. Like, there was a baseball game and a lot of us didn't go. And that was like, hey, it's okay. Like, you don't have to do all of this stuff. We're just offering, like, it was so understanding. It was like, we're going to spend time. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to like consider about what we're doing is like, everything about it was so great. I was like, this is how we should be spending time together. There should not be an arbitrary thing of like, you have to come into the office 3 days a week. You have to be here from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. of those 3 days a week. And that is required. It's like, why? Why are we putting boundaries on this? Why are we putting these guardrails on this? Why do you need to have asses in seats to do your job? That's insane to me. Like, I don't understand the rigidity behind that, where I'm like, especially in my job, I was like, y'all can fuck yourselves. I do not need to be in the office to do my job. I can obviously do my job from home. I'm fucking designing stuff. I'm making videos. I'm doing audio shit. I'm better off not being in the office. I was going to
say, it's arguably easier, especially because I'm doing the same thing in my job where I'm making training videos and things of that nature, and I've got to record voiceovers. And it's very, very hard to do well in an office environment. We used to have these little soundproof, I'm using air quotes, but soundproof phone booth things that I'd have to go in, I'd have to tape up. I printed out a sign, kept it at my desk. I'd tape that up on the door. I'd bring all my gear in. I'd set it up, a laptop, and I had this little area to work on, and I would record my thing, and I had to have that sign up so people wouldn't come by and just start banging on the window and try to interrupt you. All of that now, I just fucking set my mic up and I go. That's it. And I can knock so many more out than I could when I was in the office. So technically, I'm more productive being out of the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's clear that there's success that can be had from hybrid models, and I'm incredibly frustrated that there's organizations out there that just refuse. They're like, I want to go back to what we used to do. And I'm like, I don't think we can. I don't think people want to. I think it'll be a shift. You see a lot of people struggling with the idea of this sort of these requirements for these things, because the flexibility with life, the pandemic fucking sucked. People died. People are still dying from COVID, but it offered us an opportunity to approach work and life differently. And I, for one, am never going back. I won't. Right. I won't go back to that model of like, I have to be in the office. It doesn't make sense for what I do. If my job necessitated, if I was a facilitator, I'd be speaking a different thing. I'd be like, for me, I prefer to be in the office. Right. I don't want to fucking do onboarding through fucking Zoom. That sucks balls, man. That's awful. Get me in a room with real people. Bless you. And I'm in it, man. I would take that any day of the week. Give that to me. But yeah. Just the rigidity of everyone needs to be here. It's like, no, you don't. Not everyone.
It's a very old mentality of how work needs to be done. Like we've talked before about how a certain generation, you give 30 to 40 years to a corporation, you get a gold watch, you get a pension. That was the mentality for so long. And I think just business in general, they're having a very hard time accepting the fact that there's an evolution happening. Things evolve, things change. There's a revolution happening. Things change. And you have to, if you refuse, if the wave is big enough and you refuse to get on board, you are one of the ones that will be left just picking up the pieces of what you used to have. Like these companies will not remain if they don't, we're at the I still would argue we're at the very beginning of this revolution, of this evolution. It's starting, but I don't think it's going to stop. And these corporations can push back on you have to be in the office, you have to this and that, but there's going to be repercussions from testing your employees like that or pushing them too hard. It's the same way where in Europe they're experimenting. There's some companies experimenting with the 4-day work week. And like I know in the company I work with right now, someone had said, absolutely not. This is nothing. We will never even entertain this as an option. And I'm like, that's cool now, but I mean, what about, and we may not see it in our working lifetimes, but what about, 15, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road? If this picks up enough steam, you're going to have to at least consider it because that's what the next evolution.
Is the competition. Because
exactly.
Jill talked regularly when she was like recruiting and doing interviews and stuff for people in the IT world. Most of them had flexible work schedules well before the pandemic, and her company didn't offer that, and they lost so much talent to other organizations because of that flexible schedule. And this is another thing is like as people are taking this stuff on, because people just assume it won't work. Like, well, how could that possibly work? It's a day less of work. And it's like, I don't understand how it works, but because I haven't read into it. But it's obviously working for some. It may not work for your organization, right? Like it may not, but don't just dismiss it outright. Consider what it means and think about it. And maybe it doesn't work right now, like you said, but maybe down the road, if you start thinking about it, because what company's like, what, one less day of productivity? Fuck you. It's like, I understand the initial hesitancy to that, but me as an employee, I'm like, let's fucking talk about it. Let's think about it. Let's think about what this looks like and how it works.
Right.
I think
part of what it is that there's been studies that have been done, and don't quote me on this, but I believe there's studies have been done that say that the average worker really only works about 30 to 32 hours, like actual working time done. So even if you make them come in, you're not getting 40 productive hours from these individuals. So it's something like 30 to 35 or 32 hours, whatever it is. And the people are saying let them come in, be hyper productive for that time, give them a work-life balance that they're going to be like, fuck yes, when I come in, I'm going to bust my ass because I know I got a 3-day weekend coming up.
Right.
That's that's the mentality behind it. And to your point, these businesses look at this and go, well, no, we're losing it. We're paying them for, they're not going to work for me for a day, but their salary doesn't change. They still make as much. It's like, yes, because guess what? That productivity will remain the same or it will bump up. Mm-hmm. They're going to, there's a better than not chance that they will be more productive because they know they have a consolidated amount of time to get the same amount of work done, and they're going to fucking work their asses off, and then they're going to go fucking have fun for 3 days. Yeah. They're going to live life for 3 fucking days and then come back and do your shit. Like they can't see the forest for the trees on this one. And I think that is it's going to be, again, down the road, it will be very detrimental.
I agree. Not as detrimental as AI, though, and how AI is just constantly just giving it to people. Just giving it to people.
Just fisting.
Giving it to them. Just dumping in that open project, you know? Just unloading everything. Spreading their seed. So if you haven't heard the podcast Dudesy with Will Sasso and Chad Kultgen, I listened to that pretty regularly for a while, and then I just fell off. And then all of a sudden I saw this thing pop up that said George Carlin's new AI stand-up, and it was from Dudesy, and I was like, all right, what's going on here? And if you're not familiar, the Dudesy podcast, Will Sasso, Chad Kultgen, they basically, and this is going to be fun because Justin is incredibly skeptical of this, so be prepared. But they have they're working with an AI company. They've signed non-disclosure agreements, so they can't say who it is. But they basically signed over the social medias, their emails, all this sort of stuff, and they gave this AI named Dudesy access to it. And Dudesy essentially runs the show. It will analyze the data from their show. They'll find out like what's been engaged with. They'll read comments, and then it will then produce and design topics for the show based on that sort of stuff. And I hadn't listened to it for months. And I had, like, as soon as this thing came out, I was like, well, I got to see what this is about. I listened to the episode. Dudesy has a voice on the podcast. And before, it was pretty robotic. It had a tone and everything like that, but it wasn't very fluid in the way that it spoke. I noticed a tremendous difference in how it spoke, how it used inflection, the way that it talked. It was like, holy shit, like, this is changed dramatically. And essentially what this thing does is it'll just do stuff like on the show. It'll be like, all right, now we're going to move on to another topic. Even if they're mid-sentence, they're like, all right, cool, I guess we're done talking about this topic now. It's just like, we'll transition. But it goes, guys, I just posted my second brand new stand-up special where I imitated George Carlin. I consumed all of his specials, all of his interviews, and I took that and applied his humor to topics from 2023, 2024. And to watch Chad and Will be like, what? And he goes, and it's available right now on YouTube. And they're like, what? Like, and it just posted it and they didn't even know. They're like, what the fuck? And then it played them a clip and they're like, well, I need to go and watch the whole hour because this is kind of wild. So essentially, Dudesy took all this information, all this data, and it created an imitation of George Carlin. Took his voice, wrote jokes, applied the jokes, and created an hour-long special. There was a lot of feedback about this special.
Needless to say.
People had thoughts and opinions about this. I took the time and I listened to the whole hour because I was curious. I was very interested to see, because I like George Carlin. I'm not like a diehard fan, but I listened to a lot of his specials growing up. Blink-182 has a song based off of one of his jokes, which is one of my favorites. It's called Shit, Piss, Fuck, Cunt, Cocksucker, Motherfucker, Tits, Fart, Turd, and Twat, based on the words that you can't say, essentially, on any broadcast. They're all censored words. So I was excited. I was like, oh, this will be interesting, because George Carlin really pushes the envelope on things, topics, and stuff like that. And I listened to it, and I was like, this is kind of impressive. Like, it's you know, you can tell that, you know, it's not entirely George Carlin, but I'm like, it's fucking, I mean, the way the jokes are structured and things like that, I mean, it's pretty fucking good.
The voice, I listened to about 15 minutes of it and then scrubbed through kind of the rest. I didn't listen to the whole hour, but the voice is, the voice sounds like a good impression of him. You can tell it's not him. For sure, but you're just like, oh, there's certain moments, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. That's a good. They nailed the delivery or the inflection here and there, and they get just the right amount of gravel in his voice too, or that gruffness that he had. But while the voice is okay, the material was, I felt, spot on. How George Carlin constructed his jokes. How, you know, again, the delivery, the order in which he would place things, it felt
the repetition
very much
of how he approached things.
Absolutely. The kind of the the almost the rhyming list things he does. Like he'll list one thing over another, and then until he hits the end, and it's how they structured it. It definitely sounded like a fresh George Carlin hour, and that to me was mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
It's also like all the jokes were self-aware. It's like, I'm an AI.
That was the other thing.
I'm not really here. I'm fat.
Sorry, it took me so long. Sorry, it took me so long to get you a new special. I was dead.
The name of the special is like, I'm glad I'm dead. Like
right. It's like Carlin reaching out from beyond the grave, going, "Hey, you fucks! Here's everything that you've been up to, and here's why I disapprove."
Yeah, and so it got a lot of again passionate people discussing this, and it was interesting because Will Sasso and Chad Kultgen have very differing ideas and opinions on AI and how it's used. Will's very much like this. Nothing AI does is art unless a human is involved. If a human's not involved, then it's not art. It's just a parlor trick is what it is. And Chad is like more along the lines of like, he's very open to everything that AI and technology like posits. And he looks at AI as a tool. He's like, this is a tool that will we be using in the future to create art. He goes, not unlike a paintbrush, not unlike photography when it first came out. Everyone lambasted photography. They're like, this isn't art. This is garbage. Get rid of it. You know, you talk about movies. Will made the reference to Bob Dylan, the electric guitar. They're like, this isn't music. Like all of these things happen, and we were initially like, ugh, what is this? I don't like it. But then we figure out how to harness it. We figure out how to fine tune it. We figure out how to utilize it to get what we want, or to manipulate it to kind of create whatever we want to create. And it makes for an interesting conversation I think we need to have about things like this, because I think it's important to note that Dudesy did not monetize the special. So they get zero money from it. And Dudesy even, because Dudesy responded to a comment where someone's like, you guys are such hacks that you're so unfunny you had to resurrect a dead person to make money. And Dudesy was like, actually, no, we didn't make any money on this. So we didn't monetize it. So if you're seeing any ads, that's YouTube taking all the money from that. So it's not us. So it's interesting to see. I think it's important to have these kinds of conversations because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Because when you see this, you're like, I know how I feel about quote unquote resurrecting somebody. You know what I mean? Because there's this could lead to Robin Williams. This could lead to fucking all these comedians are just now leaving my
Pryor,
brain. Yeah. There we go. All these guys, the Bill Hicks, everything like that.
Right.
Like someone could just train something to absorb all this information and then put something out. And what do we do with that? I think the debate of like, is it art or not? I don't know. Like a lot of people are, especially because Dudesy's also very clear with this. He goes, this is my imitation of George Carlin. This is not George Carlin. This is my imitation of George Carlin. And what does that mean for people, like in that sort of regard? And it's scary in a lot of ways, because if you can train something to absorb all of that data and then instantly create an hour-long like comedy special, because Will talks about this. He's like, there's the sanctity to the hour special, because as a comedian, you go out for months and months and months and sometimes years coming up with a set, perfecting it, dialing it in so that you get this hour-long special, and then you perform it, and then you throw it all away, and then you start over and you do it again. This is a sanctified,
it's sacred ground.
It's sacred ground, and to have something be like, boop, I did it. Now, granted, it's I say that flippantly. That takes a lot of work to fucking train an AI to absorb all that information and then produce something that's actually cohesive and somewhat entertaining.
Well, real quick to add on top of that, not only was it just the jokes, but there were visual. I don't want to call them gags, but like there was AI generated art that went along with each setup and punchline. Which was bizarre. Like that was the fact that it gave you didn't have to just sit and listen to it. You could watch this, and it wasn't George Carlin, but you could watch visual interpretations of the setups and the punchlines. Very weird.
Yeah, and Dudesy's done a lot with the video recently where you're like, whoa. It does like Tom Hanks, like fake movie trailers.
Yeah.
With AI Tom Hanks visual and voiceover. It's fucking nuts. But I don't know, man. It begs the question of like, how do you feel about this? Like as this stuff is coming out.
I don't see a need for it.
Okay.
Like I just, so I understand it did it. Cool. We proved we can do it. To what end? Mm-hmm. Like to kind of what you were saying, my concern, and it sounds like what Sasso was saying, is that if we have this, if AI is able to write full hour shows in, let's call it 10 minutes, or I don't know how long it needs, but let's say it needs 10 minutes to render and process the whole thing. If they can crank out a new hour every 10 minutes, what's to stop you from getting a server farm and just, with a whole bunch of different, AI models and just farting these things out? And does that dilute the art? Does that dilute what people are saying? Like, it's just special after special after special after special that are coming out? Then everyone's like, I've seen everything there is to say about any topic. It's a slippery slope, a little bit of a Pandora's box that we can do this. To what end? Because if we just start creating specials, or creating specials from people who are deceased, or maybe some AI develops its own persona, and there's a new comedian that hits the scene, and then you find out this comedian is AI, and you're like, well, shit. But this comedian in the last month has put out 50-hour-long specials. Like, is it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, is it?
Well, I think it's interesting now because the current AI models are large language models. So basically, they have to have data to scrape together to create something. So it's whatever they make it's requires something there. Chad Kulchin posits that in the next 3 to 4 years there will be a new model that's called Q, where the AI will generate content on its own, which I think changes this conversation dramatically because because that's always been my beef with like ChatGPT and all these other images and stuff like that. It's like they pulled data from wherever, from billions of images and whatever. They pull it without asking permission, and then they're generating shit based on other people's shit. I don't think that's cool. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. If someone agreed to this, like George Carlin's daughter wrote a statement saying like, yeah, this is not George Carlin and never will be. This is essentially reductive garbage.
Very much against this.
Yeah. So, but like, let's say, I don't know, fucking Elvis's estate is like, you know what? Let's see what this is like. Let's see if we can pull this shit together and make a new Elvis song. Just see what we can do. They've done it with Nirvana. They've done it with some other stuff. I don't know if someone, really wants to do it. I think where I get uncomfortable is, there's a monetary thing in here. There's a greedy corporate, fucker out there that's like, because I think people see this as a shortcut. And in a lot of ways, it can. AI can shrink your production time. It can do a lot of things. It is not a magic bullet, though. It is not I type this in, it generates me something, and I go, ta-da. It is a foundational thing. It allows you to get started. It takes that blank canvas, and it puts a sketch down for you. And the sketch doesn't always make sense. The outline doesn't make sense. But you can take it and be like, all right, I have something to start with now, as opposed to me going through all these sorts of things and trying to put AI can take that stuff and it can shrink it down. But if anyone, like you said, right now that thinks that I can just put all this stuff in here and fart out something, I'm like, you are missing the point at this point in time. You are making a photocopy of a photocopy. Like it is not good. It's not going to do you any favors. So to that regard, I'm like, I kind of look at this as like, I'm interested. What interests me more is if this model of like, oh, this is an AI that will generate its own original content. I have no fucking clue how that works. But if that happens, that's a whole new frontier at that point in time.
Right. Well, I think to that end, we've said for a while, AI is always the worst it'll ever be. Mm-hmm. Like at this moment, AI is the worst it will ever be. It's only going to evolve and get better from here. So I think I'm not even for me, let me try this. Let me get specific with this. In the realm of stand-up comedy, I don't see a need for this. This application of it is, I think it is fraught with nothing but downfall. Like I don't see any upside to having AI generate hour-long specials in the voice of or in its own voice. I just don't see a need for this. This is exactly what the writers and the actors were striking so hard about, specifically the writers, because if this thing can just, and well, I guess, and the actors, because it's performing it as well. Like, if this thing can do that, and all it's doing is regurgitating at this point, or kind of like taking existing things, reconfiguring and spitting it back out. But when this next model comes around, this Q model, I think the union's getting ahead of what's coming down the pike is exactly why they were striking. That's very important to get ahead of it, because specifically in the realm of stand-up comedy, I don't see a practical application for having AI being able to do this. Like, what is a stand-up going to say? Write me 10 new jokes and then I'll refine them. Again, I feel like that's that's against the art form. Like, I don't know if I would call that person a true stand-up if they were doing that. Like, I think what a stand-up does is they go out.
If you could be like, use something like ChatGPT to like take a topic or use it to like generate a topic or an idea, and then you take that idea and then you take that to the stage and run with it. Not like, hey, write me these jokes, but like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, coming up with like, yeah, like I've done it for the podcast before. I'm like, come up with ideas, you know, about this topic. Like, what are some questions you could ask someone about this topic? And it goes boop, 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 pops out 10 of them. And I was like, none of them worked for me for what I was thinking. But I was like, this is a great idea to generate ideas. What if it's like, hey, consider some comedic premises based on, I don't know, butts, and just put it out there, you know? And it's like, you could look at that and be like, that's an interesting premise. And then you could take that and maybe run with it. Again, using it as an outline or as the foundation for something is one thing. Using it as this is going to create what I want. I find it interesting that you could even do something like this. Like, I find it fascinating. Useful? I'm kind of with you in that regard, where I'm like, is it necessary?
Yeah.
No.
It's fascinating, but as much as I understand we're at the point now where you either get on board or you get left behind. Kind of like the corporations and you know, the evolution of the workforce. Get on board or get left behind. I am having a very hard time getting on board. I think AI is a runaway train right now, and I feel like it is. If his name's Chad, is the other guy on the podcast?
Yeah.
If Chad is saying within the next 5 years, we potentially are going to have this Q model where it can think for itself, and it's more along the lines of what this like movie like when people talk about AI in the movies, it's this like, it's self-learning, it knows, it's self-aware. Like, if it's closer to that and it's only 5 years away, I mean, what are we doing? I don't know if it's I don't know. Go ahead.
Years ago, you and I talked to his name, Anthony LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Years ago. There's an episode, it's on here. I don't remember the episode number, but we asked him about AI.
I think you asked him about it. I sat and listened.
Justin was present for that episode. Anthony and I had a really good talk. But I brought up the idea of AI with him. It came up because he was also like a computer science major and like a fucking physics guy or engineering. Like, he has like this amazing double major, and he's like, AI is not going to be like Skynet. He goes, it's either going to be something that works like on a production line, where it's just like you give it a specific task and it does it, or he almost predicted like what we have now. It'll become a tool that we can utilize to do different things. But he's like, it's not something that's going to become self-aware. And this Q thing, I don't think is necessarily self-aware. It's just the idea that I exist. It's just, it will generate stuff on its own without using any additional data, which... My response to that initially is, I need to see something that this thing makes, because I need to see if this thing can create something that's going to generate an emotional reaction from human beings in a way that it's intended, you know?
But like, you need to see it. Isn't that I feel like curiosity kills the cat. Like, are you poking,
I would love,
are you poking
here's what
the
I would
bear
love.
On it? Like,
here's what
do
I would
you
love.
need to see this?
Here's what I would love.
Yeah.
I would love for there to be 4 short films. It goes, you play them, you watch all of them, it's like, one of them was created entirely by AI. Which one is it? And
the one where no one has fingers.
The one where someone has, like, they
Someone
can't hold on to
drink
something.
a beer can and they shoved it through their face.
Like someone trying to eat pizza. The one where they can't eat anything. They're just like, or spaghetti or something. But in a scenario like that, if we were to watch these movies, right, these short films, and if we felt like if we couldn't tell which one was which, I'd be really curious to dissect that moment, because is it good or is it bad? Or is it neither? Is it something where, again, we're using a tool to tell, we are using it to meet a desired purpose. I want to make a film about aliens and their connection with humans. And that moment when aliens and humans come together, the existential threat that poses to us. And if I can use that to help me tell that story, I'm at the helm of this, not the AI. I'm using the AI to help me tell the story. Is that wrong?
The question I would go back to is, how are you using it? How much of the process, like, is it writing the script and then you're directing it? Is it writing the script and directing, or is it generating is it an animated thing where it's generating all the images and then you're editing it? Is it editing? Like, at what point do you take over and actually helm it? You know, are you just putting?
That's a great question. Because if it's just prompt engineering, then like
that's what, right?
What are we doing? I'm just really good at writing prompts. You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, I don't know. I can't. My mind can't perceive what this.
Neither
would look
you
like,
or I are developers in that realm, and so we're limited with what we know of it, which is nothing.
Yeah. If I were to able to use this tool to generate images, because I'm not a cinematographer, right? I'm not an animator, but if it can generate all of that stuff, if it could, write the script and I go through and I tweak it, then. Right? But what if I don't have money, Justin?
Well, then figure out how to.
You don't get to make short films, Justin,
then figure out how to shoot something on your phone,
Justin.
And get better. Develop the skill.
What if this eliminates the need for big budget movies, Justin?
That's not that important to me.
Justin,
that's not that
your
important.
budget is $100. $100 movies, man, and you can make just the best fucking movies in the world.
You're not making them. You're not making them for $100. You're not. No, you're not.
Oh, I am in this universe, because the subscription is $100 a month to use this service.
What I'm
Who am I
saying
kidding?
is,
it'd be way more than that.
Right? Exactly. Come on.
It'd be way more than that.
Doug. Let's go. What are we doing?
That's for the cacasual subscriber. That's for the casual creator. If you want the unlimited pro,
you can
make
2 short films a month if you for $100.
It's become such a commodity of like, check out these. Like, hey, here's my short film. It's like making shorts on YouTube.
Right, exactly. But again, I would say that goes back to the same argument I have about stand-up, is that if everyone's just cranking out, if you can sit there and you can just put a prompt in and it farts out a 15-minute short film, and everyone's just cranking these things out, I think it takes away from the value, the artistic value of that thing. I think sometimes
it becomes the new podcast where like everyone's doing it and you can't cut through.
No,
it's just like
what
all
we're
this
doing
content
here is nonsense.
But it also, God, my mind's just firing on all cylinders. What does that do to production studios? What does that do to Netflix and HBO and all these movie studios? Because
that's what I'm worried about.
Their shit gets devalued too, right?
No, because they're going to start using it, and they're the ones that are going to break everything.
Of course,
they're the ones that are going to break.
That's their purpose.
Yeah.
But if everyone has, because it's like slowly the walls come down,
right.
Just like pretty much anybody can make music nowadays, right? Like similar thing. If everyone has access to these tools that allows them to generate these things, the market becomes diluted. Right. It's like, what do we have Oscars for, Justin?
Right.
What do the Oscars look like?
There's no value to anything. Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's wild because that's in my opinion, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the value of this now is it requires a very specific skill set to create films and things like that. If you reduce the skill set and the monetary requirements for that, but you have something that can create that just as well, I don't even know how to fucking square that circle, man. Like I can't put that, like, there's so many variables, like, when I'm trying to consider what that would mean and what that would do. But I always go back to the same thing. Is it good? Is it good enough that you can watch it and enjoy it? Because I think that matters. I think it matters. If people are farting out garbage, that's one thing. But if you can use this tool to create something that makes you feel, that makes you react to it, if it can make you an Oppenheimer and you're like, what an amazing story, and it's original, like, that's got to mean something, right?
I think that means something, but the way that you're setting it up intimates that it means the majority. That is the majority of what it means. And I think if it makes you feel something, that means something. That's an element that needs to be there when you're creating something. You want to make people feel something. So if it can do that, that's an element. I don't think that is a justification for just going, cool, turn the faucet on, let's go. Like, that's a speck of what's important.
Not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I want to clarify. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying, when all things are equal, if we all have this ability, right? The faucet has already been turned on,
right?
And we can create something that makes that you look at it and you're like, holy shit, this is so fucking good. Like, that has to count for something. Because right now, AI generated stuff, you're like, look at this garbage. You know what I mean?
Right.
The George Carlin one, it's solid, but as Will Sasso says, it's a parlor trick. You know, it's an imitation of something. So we can see through the 8 fingers on one hand. You know, we can see the things we're like, this doesn't look quite right. If we can get past the uncanny valley, if we can conquer the uncanny valley, and we can use this as a tool to create stuff. Granted, it means actors are fucked, directors are fucked, cinematographers, editors, all those people are fucked, right? That aside, small caveat, that aside, if you can use this tool to create something that people consider to be art, because it transcends, it tells a human story, something we can connect with, what do we do with that? You know what I mean? Like, that is... holy shit. Will we ever get there? Fuck if I know. But I'm just, I'm theory crafting right now. Like, that is like, you have a tool. Because is that then unlike a camera or a cinema, camera or electric guitar? Is it any different than that? Or will the system just evolve around it? I don't know. These are questions. I apologize. I am fucking rambling.
That's like, this is Doug's podcast now. That's fine. I'm just here as an observer. I feel like we're with Anthony LeBlanc again.
Yeah, we are. Or I'm just talking to myself this time and just positing questions and not letting you answer them.
I was going to say, it would be lovely to have a conversation about it instead of you just positing. Whatever, it's all good. Yeah.
What about this?
Here, this is how it will be like when AI takes over, Doug.
Yeah.
It's just a one-way ticket. No, I think disagree. Let's move on.
We're out of time. Disagree.
I think I don't. Here's the problem. I don't even know. There's a lot to address. I don't know where to start because there was a lot that was just dumped out there. So I don't know what to say to any of it other than if you remove all the jobs of the people who create the art, I think it ceases to be art. The electric guitar doesn't play itself. The camera doesn't take the photo by itself. All of these things that were revolutionary still required a human element, still required someone to use the tool. AI, if you can just hit go and it creates 99% of everything that you need it, you just have to tell it something and then it goes and creates. I don't think that's art. That's my distilled
We don't have any more
opinion.
time. I don't agree with that, but let's put a pin in it. Let's let it marinate.
Oh, sorry, we don't have any more time.
Well, I just like we got to move on to the next thing. But I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments. I am my mind is wide open to all this sort of stuff. This is
I'll put some thoughts in the comments too.
But thank you, you too, and we'll just continue this. It's just a one-way thing. You see a bunch of comments from me, and just no comments from Justin. As I respond to my own comments, I answer my own questions. But this is fascinating, and these are conversations we're very important. We need to have them because this shit is going to happen whether we like it or not. So we need to be talking about it. So
agreed.
You got the questions, we got the answers. All you do is ask. Practical, 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 practical. Ask Practical Doug.
I will haunt your butt.
Ooh, that's a throwback.
Classic, baby.
I feel like we haven't used that one in a long time.
Been a minute.
So if you've never been here before for Ask Practical Doug, Practical Doug is a tiny Doug that lives inside of large Doug, and
Practical Goblin!
Or Practical Goblin. He's very fucking practical. And if you would like to ask Practical Doug a question, you can. Any social media at MindGap Podcast, and then hashtag Ask Practical Doug. In our Discord server, link in the description below, there's a channel that's dedicated to asking Practical Doug things. And if you get a real good one on there, we might read your Ask Practical Doug on the air, and you might get your answer from the horse's mouth live on air. Today, pause for gas, we're going back to our favorite subreddit, Am I the Asshole? And Salty University 202 writes, Dear Practical Doug, am I the asshole for making my wife pay me for something she gave away? Interesting. My wife has a bad habit of giving away or lending out things that don't belong to her. I've lost count of how many times I go to look for something of mine, only for her to say that she lent it to somebody. She also takes forever to get the item back. She once lent my stuff to a coworker and refused to ask for it back for a month. And I'll never forget the day my usually quiet, reserved son snapped at her for trying to give away his Nintendo Switch. If I wasn't also fed up with her behavior, I would have washed his mouth out with soap. Now, I've had countless talks with her, but she continues to do this. My son and I have resorted to locking up anything we didn't want touched, which is something we shouldn't have to do in our own home. Last week, I won a $300 tent in a raffle. I had no plans on using it, so I was going to sell it. When I found a buyer and I went to look for it, I couldn't find it. When I asked my wife, she said she gave it to a friend of ours. I got mad at her and said she had no right to give it away. Her defense was since I didn't spend money on it and I was not planning on using it, it made sense to give it away for free. I told her it wasn't her decision to make, but she just kept repeating herself. I had enough of this, and she said she's either gonna pay me herself or get the money from who she gave it to. And if she didn't, I'd get law enforcement involved. Wait.
Fuck me, slutty.
Since she'd rather die than ask a friend for money, she paid me out of her own pocket. Which, is that not just...
Hey, they may have separate accounts.
Okay. The issue eventually got around to her family while they did say she should have talked to me first, they also reprimanded me for asking for payment. They reasoned that since I didn't actually buy the tent, I didn't lose any money and it went to a friend who could actually put it to good use. I got several texts saying I should be ashamed for extorting my wife for money. I think I have every right to want to be paid for something of mine's that was taken, but everyone keeps emphasizing the fact that I didn't technically buy the tent and I didn't want it, so I have nothing to be upset about. Practical Doug, am I the asshole?
This is interesting because he obviously has a larger background and context with his relationship with his wife.
Right.
And the family doesn't. So the family only sees it as this one situation where they're like, you want a tent, she gave it away, and now you charged her $300? You're fucking crazy.
Right.
You know? Like, they don't, so I'm assuming his context is accurate, as always, as we do with these things. I find this, I grew up with a mom who just threw my shit away. Like, would just go through my room and just chuck shit. And I'm like, why did you do that? She's like, well, I just threw it away. I was like, no, dude, don't throw away my shit. The amount of time she did that, to the point where when Jill and I just moved in together, I had a fucking laundry hamper that was a piece of shit. It was like a cheap one you get for college. It had wires, metal and stuff like that. And like the metal was poking out of it and whatever. And Jill just threw it away one day. I was like, where's my laundry hamper? She's like, I threw it away. I was like, how could you do that? She's like, oh, my bad. I didn't realize we couldn't throw away this garbage. And so I empathize with Salty University on this one in that I don't like people fucking with my shit. Mm-hmm. And the point here is that he won this tent and he had intended to sell it to earn the money. Mm. And the fact that she just gave it away without talking to him, I think is kind of shitty. Like, there's some things where it's like, hey, can I borrow this wrench? It's like, here you go, borrow a wrench. No big deal. I don't need to get my partner involved on this one. Right. But this fucking tent, it's like, how hard is it just to be like, hey, is it cool? Someone wants to borrow this, because it sounds like from what he's saying, like she will just lend shit out, and then she has social awkwardness and can't ask for it back.
Right. She'll never follow up. It's just she gives it. She's not lending it. She's giving it. Right.
So I don't think that's cool that she's doing that. This seems to be a trend with that. Yeah. So I would say I understand him being upset in this situation where he's like, I fucking have someone that wants to buy this. I go to find it, and you fucking just gave it away. You didn't even talk to me about it. I could probably see from her perspective, she's like, you won this for free. You said you're never going to use it, so I'll just give it away. Just talk. Now, I also don't know how well he communicates with her either. Like, I don't know if he's just pissed about this and doesn't talk to her, and this is the first time she's heard about this. If this has been an ongoing conversation, then whatever, but I'm going to assume that's the case. Mm-hmm. But I would say I don't think he's an asshole for being pissed. I think it's a little extreme to be like, I'm going to get law enforcement involved. I don't even know what that fucking means. Yeah. My wife stole my tent, and they're like, oh my God. Like,
and they're like, this is why we hate our jobs.
Yeah. Like, she basically like, she stole my tent. He's like, because I get her point in that you're not going to use this. So why not give it to a friend who needs it? But
the thought is fine. But like, to your point, communicate.
You can't just do this simple. Unilaterally,
right. And yeah, I mean, I think there's the petty part of me. It's like, don't get law enforcement involved. Just start giving her shit away.
Right.
And be like, cool, if that's what we're doing. But then that that leads down a very, again, slippery slope. And
listen, it's a fun thought exercise. All right.
It is a fun thought exercise. Exactly.
But don't do it.
No. I think you let it go, but you sit down and have a very fucking earnest conversation with her and go, hey, look, this needs to stop. We can't keep doing this.
And the same thing, like his son saw it too when she tried to give away his Nintendo Switch. What are you doing giving away your kid's fucking video game system?
Very weird.
Like, are you crazy? No wonder he snapped. It's like trying to take a bone away from a dog. You crazy?
I feel like and again, I have no background in psychology or anything, but there seems like there's something else going on here. There seems like there's a deeper well to be tapped, and I don't know what it is, but there's this situation, this scenario feels odd to me. In that she keeps giving things away. There's something under the surface,
and won't ask for them back because he says she lends them, but then she just. Yeah. I get the social anxiety. I don't like fucking ordering food over the phone. All right? I get it.
Never have.
I understand that there's those, and it sucks to have to be like, hey, that thing I lent you, could I have it back, please? Yeah. It's like, it feels like you're calling in a debt or something. It sucks. All right? But in general, don't touch people's shit without asking them. It's right? Ask. Easy rule. If you see this tent, this $300 tent, all right, and you're just like, what are we going to do with this? Are you going to use it? No. Is it cool if I give it to my friend? Or if he's like, actually, I'm planning on selling it.
Okay.
The problem is solved.
Right.
So there's a breakdown in communication here that needs to be resolved. I think, I don't think Salty University is an asshole, but he needs to be careful. If he doesn't communicate this, if he hasn't been communicating about this, and then all of a sudden he just threatens her, yeah, he's an asshole. So that I will make that stipulation. If he's giving us his backstory but doesn't say, and I've talked to her about it. If this is just living in your head, man, you're a fucking dick. You can be pissed, but you can't bring law enforcement in because you've never confronted your partner about their annoying tendencies. So
Right.
that's on you, buddy. So that's where I stand.
So, with the caveat standing, not the asshole, it is decided.
God, that looks so gross and phallic. Justin, what do you got to recommend this week?
I'm going to recommend a movie I watched on Apple TV Plus. It's called Fingernails. Came out last year. It's a sci-fi rom-com kind of thing. It stars Jessie Buckley, who you would probably know if you saw her. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear, Riz Ahmed, Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, Luke Wilson's in there. It's got a fun cast. It's a really interesting. It feels very indie film, which tickled me in the right places.
I think you've already recommended this.
No, did I?
I think most positive you have. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I'll shut up. You go.
Hold on. No. I'm gonna go back. So I got it this week.
I think it's been on here a while,
there.
And
Yeah.
I think I looked it up, and that's where I thought, okay, never mind. My apologies. I think
That's
I'm in my
okay.
own head on this one.
Sorry. Hey, look. If I've recommended it before, I'm recommending it again. Go
If
watch
I recommended it before,
Fingernails.
fuck you. You're gonna listen to my spiel again.
Fuck you. You're gonna listen. Yeah. It's they in this universe. There's a test that you can take to figure out whether or not you are a match for someone. They have to rip out one of your fingernails from each person, and then they put it in this machine, and it runs, and you either get a score of 100, which means both of you are in love, a score of 50, which means one of you are in love, but it doesn't tell you who, or a score of 0, and neither of you are in love. And so then you can choose to continue a relationship or not. But yeah, and it's kind of, yeah, so that's where the sci-fi comes in, but there's the sci-fi romance, and it deals with some really interesting stuff about kind of being complacent in a relationship. So I would recommend Fingernails. Doug, what do you got?
All right. I've got a little card game called Lost Cities. This was lent to me by one of Natalie's friend's dad, who's the super board game guy. And it's an absolutely amazing, quick 2-player game that you can play. The gist of it is that you are playing as explorers, and there's a certain number of expeditions that you can go on. And if you choose to go on an expedition and essentially play a card, you basically are committing 20 points. So you're 20 points in the hole, and your objective is to get more than that, to obviously net a positive. And there's ways to like double down, triple down, and quadruple down.
Okay.
And there's a limited number of cards. So you have to be very strategic. And I've tried to teach Natalie the strategy behind this. She hasn't quite figured it out yet. But she's just like, I have to play a card. And I'm like, I'm looking at the cards that I have, and she's like, plays a 5. I'm like, well, I have the 8, 9, and 10. That is 27 points right there. So you're gonna be in the negative on this one, child. She's like, and I'm doubling down. I'm like, uh-oh. But it's very fun. It's a great game of like patience, and also like, I gotta screw over the other person.
Yeah.
But how long do I screw over the other person before I have to make a move? And it's very entertaining. It's a quick game. It's like probably 15 minutes.
I was gonna say this. I'm looking at an image of the board, and it does not look. It does not look overly complex. Like it looks like it would run relatively quickly, but you could get a bunch of rounds in and still be interested in the game.
It's great math practice for Natalie too, because you have to. I'm like, when she commits to an expedition, I go,
yeah.
Do you think you have enough to get 20? And she goes, yes. And I look at the cards in my hand. I'm like, are you sure? She's like, yes. And I'm like, we'll see.
That sounds good.
I'm like, think about this before you do it, please. And then at the end, you have to add up your points to find your score. So it's great addition and subtraction for her, which is really, really good practice. But fell in love with the game. It's great. It's really fun. It's worth playing. So check that out.
Nice.
Bang. Gang, thanks for hanging with us for another week. This was so much fun. We appreciate you. We love you. And in particular, there was someone who just left a really cool comment on the page, and that was Square Cubed. Thank you, Square Cubed, for saying, really dig the vibe of this podcast. You guys are awesome. Keep it up. Thank you. Thank you
are
for the
awesome,
comment.
Square Cube.
You are awesome. We love you. Check out all of our stuff, on YouTube. Like, subscribe, drop a comment, stuff like that. You have no idea. That made my fucking morning. I woke up to that. I was like, haha, nice. Between that, followed by the gym story. It was great, man. It was a good morning. It was a really great day. We love to hear from you, especially like give us your thoughts on the bullshit that I just barfed out here today and on any of the things we talked about. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's so great. Check us out in the description below for Discord information, Patreon information, merch information, all that's there. Follow us on all our social media at MindGap Podcast and check out Justin online as well.
On Instagram, it's at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the online realm, check us out on any platform where you can listen to podcasts. That's right. We're on every one of them. You can't get away from us. Like, subscribe, share, rate, review, all those things. The big one is sharing because it's caring. Let people know that we exist. It means the world, and it gets us out there. 2east8th.com, 2east8th on all social media, and loveandimprovfilm.com, loveandimprovfilm on Instagram.
Woo! All right.
Woo!
With that, I want to say, hey, Justin, thank you.
Hey, Doug. Thank you.
Awesome. Listeners, viewers, watchers, lovers, thank you. And you all have a dandy fucking week.
Mind Gap Podcast.